the best traders in the NASDAQ pit would spread the NASDAQ against the S&P, and I could never figure it out. The worst trade that I ever had, not financially, just the worst trade I ever made, was on the open. The broker behind me had 200 to buy, 200 big NASDAQ to buy. And we were opening up on the highs. So we had rallied, you know how I talk about how I don't like when we open up on the highs, when the opening range is on the high of Globex. So that day we happened, our high happened to be at the high of Globex. And we rallied like 40 or 50 handles to get there just before the open. So the broker, I thought, I didn't know what was going on. And Woody, this broker behind me, had a 200 lot to buy on the open, and that's a big deal. A 200 lot on the open was big then. And that would be, what would 200 be? It would be 1,000 lot, 1,000 NASDAQ minis. So there was a broker on the other side of the pit that was offering 100. I went, buy them. I buy 100 on the fucking high, which was so silly and so stupid. The next trade I bought, and I remembered, I don't remember the handle, but I bought 80s. The opening range was 60 to 80. It was a 20 handle wide opening range in the NAS. And I bought a 100 lot at the high. So that would have been a 500 lot. I bought 500 minis. And the market's just, now I bought 80s. The bottom of the opening range is 60. And I'm like standing there bewildered, like, what an asshole, you moron. So I went running out of the pit. And I'm not even, my brain wasn't even, making a whole lot of sense. And I wanted to spread it against the S&P. I couldn't figure out my brain wouldn't work fast enough. And I'm not usually like that, to figure out what the ratio was between the NASDAQ and the S&P. Running out of the pit. Buy 200. I over leveraged the S&P against the NASDAQ. And so I buy 200 in the S&P. I'm long 100 NASDAQ. And long 200 S&P. No, I sold no. I was long 100 NASDAQ and I sold 200 S&P. The S&P rallies and the NASDAQ breaks. I buy the fucking S&P on the high, and I ended up losing 300,000 on the trade. I got out right away. So by far, not even close to being one of my worst financial trades, but it was far away my worst and most ridiculous and stupidest trade that I ever made. And I never tried to spread that shit again. And I only did it as kind of an emergency. And I'm usually really, really good in situations like that. When, like the day when I've talked about this before, when I lost like over $1 million, I lost over $1.5 million in 30 seconds. January 3rd, it was the very first trading day of the year in 2000 to 2001. My daughter's first day of preschool, my oldest daughter's first day of preschool. I came in late and I never did. The bubble had burst, so it was 2000, right? The bubble had just burst and the markets were falling apart. So Greenspan cut interest rates by 50 basis points on the very first trading day of the year, knowing that nobody would be trading. I was short 18 big NASDAQ. We had the biggest rally in NASDAQ history. It still stands as the biggest rally, single day rally in NASDAQ history. Within 30 seconds, we went from, I think it was I want to say it was 1980. I was short and I was trying to get the market down to 1968. Judd told his nephew to tell me not to be short. And I said, I'm just getting them down, touch off stops. I'm going to make 15, 20,000. I was short 15, but I kept down ticking it with one lots, trying to touch off stops, get out, make 15, 20,000 and take off. All of a sudden, all hell broke loose. And I mean, all hell broke loose. 20 bid, 20 half bid, 21 even bid. So that would be in the NASDAQ, that would be 12,800, 850 right now. That would be 12,900 bid, 12,000, 1,300 even bid, 1,300, 100 bid, 200 bid. We rallied 650 full fucking points in 30 seconds. I've got two brokers going, two brokers trying to buy 100 from me at 24.5, which was the dead high. I bought 100 at 24.5. Another broker, I'll buy 200 at 24.5. Pax are grabbing me by my jacket. I'm the only big trader in there. Pax, I'll buy 100 from you at 24.5. I'll buy 200 from you at 24.5. These are big NASDAQ. And then the other broker's going, and I sold you, no, 26.5. 26.5. I'll buy 100 at 26.5. I'll buy 200 at 26.5. No. And I'll sell you 100 at 24. That's 250 full points on 100 lot. Anyway, the point of that story is the big, that a broker was trying to give me something like a $10 million trade. And I told him no. I was a small partner in the clearing firm. I was clearing Mickey Oppin's group. And I had a lot of money in my trading account because I traded big. This is in 2000 or 2001. I had lost $1.5 million that I did not have 2 years previous to that. So when these brokers are trying to buy 300 contracts and sell me 100, I told them no. And frankly, what I was hearing was, I wasn't hearing them. My brain wasn't registering. All I kept thinking was, I got to get out. I got to get out. I got to get out. I can't average these. I don't even know how much money I'm down. Now, all of this happened in the span of 30 seconds or less. And I just kept bidding the market up. Imagine that. It was really like my worst nightmare. Just imagine being short at 12,008 half, 12,900 even bid, 950 bid, 13,000 even bid, 13,100, 200 bid. There were no offers. What are you guys doing? Give me an offer someplace. I don't fucking care. Give me an offer. I got to get out. I'm stuck short packs. I'm stuck short too. So I could not get out. It was like literally that dream. I don't know if you guys ever have it. I still do. That's my recurring nightmare. Actually, my recurring nightmare is different now, but that used to be it, where I was, I'd be short and bidding up the market and couldn't get out. So the brokers were trying to buy, maybe it wasn't 300. Maybe one guy was buying 100, trying to buy 100 for me. Another guy was trying to buy, it was at least 200. And this guy, he was broke. He was on his last legs. He was running around asking all of us if you get a good 20 lot, will you give me 5? I'm going to lose my house, that kind of thing. He didn't ask us for money. He wasn't running around borrowing money from us, but he was asking us for trades. Was the guy that sold that 100 lot, and he made $12 million that day. He sold one of those 100 lots. Another trader, who was one of the best fucking traders in the S&P, in the NASDAQ, sold the other 100, and he made something like 20 million that day. I lost $1.5 million, and I could have lost a lot more. The reason I didn't sell them was I didn't know where the market was. I knew that that Greenspan cut interest rates by 50 basis points. I had no idea where the market was. When you need to get out, when you're wrong, you're on the wrong side of the market, you need to get out. Prices are relevant. If you're on the wrong side of the market and you need to get out, price is irrelevant, especially in a market that moves as quickly as the NASDAQ or the Russell or Bitcoin or any of them. When you are wrong and the market is against you, get out. GTFO, get the fuck out. There is no reason. Averaging has put more traders living in Chicago, has caused more traders living under lower record drive than any other thing. So please remember, if you need to get out, just get out. That's it. That day I could have ended up making, turning a $2 million loss or $1.5 million loss into a $10-15 million winner, but I didn't. And you know what? That day stays. Not only does it stay with me because it was one of the best days. It was the worst trading day. I've actually had bigger losses, but that was the worst trading day because percentage wise, it was a large part of my net worth at that point. Didn't change my lifestyle, but changed everything. And I'll get to the main lesson of that day. But I was debit $650,000. So imagine being debit $650,000 in your account. and being allowed, I was allowed to trade the next day. The bankers in New York, the guys in New York who were backing our firm, did not want me to trade, but Mickey was the main owner of the firm. And we went up there with the other partners of the group and talked to the bankers, and they went to bat for me. So imagine that, being debit $650,000. There's nobody in the world that would be allowed to trade debit that much. But they allowed me to trade. They knew that it was at that point, it was, I didn't have, $650,000 in my checking account to just write a check. I had to wire it from other accounts into it. And it was going to take a couple of days. This all happened on a Monday. So I promised that I would clean up the debit by Thursday. And they said, okay, don't trade more than 5 contracts. You can trade. And the reason why it was so important for me to get back in there and trade that day was because if anybody else smelled, it's like sharks. If they smelled blood in the water, then everybody would be in there to pick my bones. There was always on an outlying event like that, an outlier, there was always a horror story on the trading floor, always a horror story. I happen to be the horror story. Everybody was talking about how I lost 15 million, 20 million, how I took the firm down, UOT, I was clearing UOT then. I invested a small amount of money in it. I lost 20, 30, 50 million, all kinds of things. When I got out, I gave my clerk my card. I went down to the Merc Club and I lit a cigarette. Word spread fast. My friend who was trading up in his office came down, running into the Merc Club and sat with me. He's like, and the world was buzzing. I had no, Jimmy, how much am I down? I don't know. And he yelled, my clerk yelled at me, I don't know. Get the fuck out. Let me figure it out. Give me an idea. You're down anywhere from 1 million to 10. I don't know. Oh God, 1 million I can deal with. 10 million, I don't know what I'd have done. So I went down to the Merc Club and smoked a cigarette, and the ash was hanging off like this. And the ash was just hanging there. I went and then made me leave and go eat. We went to Tuscany on Taylor Street. We didn't really eat. We went there, ordered, we pushed food around, and then we went back on the floor. And that's when I figured out how much money I was down and what I needed to do. So next morning, talked to the bankers. They allowed me to trade as long as I didn't trade more than 5 contracts at a time. We were so fucking busy that week that the next day I made $150,000 trading 5 lots, which would be a 5 lot would be a 25 lot. I only traded 25 minis, or I was trading 5 lot big ones, which would equate to being 25 minis. I couldn't trade more than 5 contracts, and if I made the debit any worse, then I had to stop trading. It was important for me to be back in the pit. I started to say this earlier. It was important for me to be back in the pit because if the other traders smelled blood, everybody was talking about how much money I lost. They would start to pick my bones. Everybody would try to pick what was left off of the carcass. So next day, I walked down there with my head held high, and every here, Pax is here. How in the fuck could he be here? He lost 20 million. How rich is that motherfucker? That kind of shit. I walked down there. Hey guys, what's happening? And on the open, Pax, what are you doing? 12 on 100. I'm 12 bid 100. Sold. I'll buy 5. I only traded 5 lots all day long, but I was there, and I was able to hold my head up. At the end of the day, one of the compliance officers he was across the pit from me, and he looked at me and he went, like this. He pointed at me and said, are you okay? Hand signals. And I just went, yeah. I nodded, yes. And then I started, my eyes welled up. I cried. I cried at the drop of, I've cried in here many times with you guys. I cried at the drop of a hat. Tears welled up in my eyes because my answer was, yes, I'm okay. That was the day that I realized that the market can't hurt me. That was the day that I realized I have nothing to fear from the market. That day where I lost, I don't even know what the percentage of our net worth was at that point, but it was a large percentage of it. I lost over $1 million. That day, I also earned the trust of many, many people in that business, because everybody knew that I was debit a lot of money. Everybody knew that my firm took a chance on letting me trade debit $650,000. And I did not break the rule. If I was down $1, I would stop trading. I made 150 grand that day. I also had help. You know, there were traders in there that were giving me that if they bought 100 lot, Pax, I sold you 5. Pax, I bought 5. Pax, I sold you 5. But the markets were really busy. Next day, I made another trading 5 lots. I made another 100 or 150 trading 5 lots. So when I cleared up my debit, they wanted me to put, when I cleared up my debit, the bankers in New York wanted me to have more than $1 million in my account because of how big I traded. And I wouldn't do it. I own my membership. So what I did was, instead of, I would never, and this is important too, and anybody who's got more than $100,000 in your futures trading account should think of this. I refused to put $1 million into my account. And the only reason was because if somebody took that firm down, then my million was gone. The same sort of thing that happened with MF Global. I owned my membership, and that was worth a couple $100,000 at that point, you know, so that wasn't enough to indemnify, you know, $1 million account. But what I did was I bought a $500,000 T-bill. I bought a $500,000 treasury bill, and I kept it in my name. I didn't put it in the firm's name. I kept it in my name, and but I lodged it with the firm. I never thought that would happen to me. You know, I never thought that something like that would happen. So I never thought that when Greenspan cut interest rates on the first trading day of the year, he had a stack of thank you letters like this. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Mr. Greenspan. And one fuck you letter from me. So he had a stack. Somebody said this, and I thought it was a great line. A stack of thank you letters like this. Thank you for raising interest or cutting rates. And this was me. You jagoff. I went home. You know, that day I went home and I told my ex-wife, I got good news and bad news. Yeah, we had just put $1 million with her dad. I think $1 million, like $500,000, $1 million, whatever the fuck it was. We just put a lot of money, more than $500,000, at least $500,000 with her father's broker. What a fucking terrible idea. We ended up buying Intel on the high. We bought Microsoft on the high. We bought all of this shit on the high. And I went home and I told my ex-wife, I'll never forget what I was wearing. I was wearing this Notre Dame, it was a gold Notre Dame like pullover, you know, like a V-shape that was popular in the early aughts, and a pair of khakis, Gerbeau khakis. I love those Gerbeau khakis. Oh, and I walked in through the butler's pantry of our house, and we had this big ass fucking house. I'm 32, 33-year-old rich guy with this huge house. I walk into the house, and you know, my house was bigger than like four 2-flats on my block that I grew up on. Anyway, walked into the house, and I immediately took my clothes off and threw them. I was standing in my skivvies, and my ex-wife said, what are you doing? What's going on? I got good news and bad news. Which one do you want first? Give me the good news. I said, okay. Our stock portfolio is significantly higher now than what it was this morning. She goes, oh, what's the bad news? I lost $1.4 million. Oh, that was bad.